We need a truce. All I want is to be back in charge. Besides, who would you be without me, Prime? Time to find out.
I was a mere 6 years old when I first saw Transformers in theaters. This was the same year I was obsessed with Bionicle, so needless to say, I was instantly fascinated with another franchise about robots fighting other robots. But these could do something really cool the others couldn't. Turn into cars, trucks, jets, and whatever the hell this is. For a while, that was all I really needed to be entertained. Revenge of the Fallen came out, and I got to see Optimus participate in the craziest 3v1 a child could possibly ever witness. Then Dark of the Moon came out, and I was all like, whoa, he just ripped that dude's head out, and that guy's eye out. And even though I was, a little heartbroken Megatron died because I was personally a really big fan of his whole hobo with a shotgun look, but I quickly forgot about it when this banger came on.
Do you feel cold?
I know, I'm rambling, but I'm almost to the point. Just bear with me. If you're like most kids that grew up with the Bayverse, then you definitely know what came out around that time. That's right, Transformers motherfucking Prime. That was a really funny little self-censor there. Yeah, if you're even remotely involved with the Transformers fandom, then you can't escape this show. It's like the G1 for Gen Z, because this is the only good Transformers show. Trust me, the rest of them suck. None of them could possibly be as good. For the longest time though, Prime was my favorite show. The focus on a smaller cast made it easier for me to appreciate each character, and the animation was so dynamic that I couldn't help but make this shit my religion. However, there was one thing Prime did to me that changed the way I perceived the Bay films forever. You know how I mentioned the smaller cast allowed you to connect with all the characters? Well, that kind of sorta also applied to the Decepticons. Megatron, Starscream, Breakdown, Knockout, Arachnid, Shockwave, and Dreadwing were all cons with vastly different personalities and morals, and they were genuine characters.
Aim for the head!
What? How do you know?
I have seen human horror films at drive-in theaters.
Sure, they're antagonists, but I quickly learned that a story is a lot more interesting when both sides in a main conflict are very well written. I'm not saying Transformers Prime was the first major piece of Transformers media to do this, but it was the first one I was consistently consuming that did. Credit where credit is due though. G1, Armada, Animated, War for Cybertron, not that one, the good one, and Fall of Cybertron were all media that nudged me toward feeling that way. The cast of Autobots simply felt better when there was a Decepticon cast there to match. So with all that context in your noggin, let's talk about the way that the Michael Bay films utterly failed to represent the Decepticons. For what it's worth, I think the first film did pretty good, and although the list is short, the only Decepticons who spoke English were Megatron, Starscream, Barricade, and I guess you could count Frenzy. Now, why is this important? Well, I'm no psychology major or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure that connecting via languages that you understand goes a long way toward feeling sympathy. I'd imagine it's not easy to feel sympathy towards someone you can't understand because there's nothing for you to connect with. I bring this up because the Decepticons in these movies, when they do speak, is exclusively in Cybertronian, which, although it sounds like a cool concept, it's really just garbled noise, which was basically used as a means to cut down on hiring voices. And for key moments, subtitles are accompanied, but this seemed to be dropped right after the first movie. Another issue I have with these movies is how blatantly the Decepticons are used as nothing more than fodder. The Transformers in the Transformers movies are already more of a background characters that are more akin to like props for major battles. Because let's be honest, the explosions, the humans, the over-sexualization of women, and the whole America, yeah moments, and casual racism
Got your fortune cooking?
tend to be at the forefront more than anything else. I mean, Optimus Prime might be the only Transformer in these movies to have a clear arc. But that's a different discussion for another day. Back on topic though, the Decepticons in these movies definitely got the shorter end of the stick, because they're the antagonists. So what do you do when you have mindless alien robots that the audience doesn't care for? Why, you execute them in rated R violence, only allowed to exist in a PG-13 film because they're not human. And this is just the second movie. It gets so much worse.
You die!
I got the lash!
If Dark of the Moon was the last Transformers movie, I actually think some of those deaths would have been fine because at least there was a definitive ending. Especially because one of my favorite scenes with Decepticons is in this movie. The scene where Megatron, Starscream, Laserbeak, and Soundwave are all just chilling out here in Africa is probably one of the most character scenes we've gotten out of the Decepticons in the entire Bayverse. Don't even get me started on Age of Extinction, because that is where all of these problems finally came to fruition and were glaring. I mean, the Decepticons in this movie are literal drones with no personalities, feelings, or even voices. Except for Galvatron, but whatever, we don't talk about this version of him. Other than he's voiced by Frank Walker, that's actually cool.
That is why I have no fear.
Finally though, we have The Last Night, which, to be completely honest with y'all, I've seen this movie twice, and I still can't tell you what happened after the halfway mark. What I do remember is that they had like this Suicide Squad style intro for all the Decepticons in this film, and like half of them die less than 10 minutes afterward. Nitro Zeus alone was kind of a pretty cool guy, but even he only had like a few lines, and even he dies by the end of the movie, like he didn't even make it. And well, that's kind of it for the Decepticons in these movies. They started off as pretty admirable foes for the Autobots, but by the first sequel, they were relegated to nothing more than cannon fodder, and that's about it. I understand the movies will always be different from the shows, and so they can't give the Decepticons the same amount of screen time as the Autobots or even as much development, but I can't help but feel like the portrayal of the Decepticons in these movies to just be bland, boring, and sad, really. Some of my favorite moments across all of Transformers is whenever the Decepticons and Autobots put aside their differences to fight a common enemy, because at the end of the day, they're both part of the same species. The fact that they can't even have some form of common ground where they remember, hey, we're from the same planet, like we are still capable of working together despite being in this war. We had moments like that in Transformers Prime and Armada, and for that, those shows stick out far more to me than any of these movies. I'm not saying I want super deep and complex Decepticons in my Transformers movies, but what I am saying is I would like to see a little bit more effort put into making them actual characters. This was something that was done exceptionally well in Bumblebee. Now, I'm not saying Dropkick and Shatter were perfect by any means, but they were done so much better than practically any Decepticon before them. Heck, even Blitzwing felt like a more compelling character than any Decepticon in Bayverse, and he only showed up for like less than 3 minutes. And that breaks my heart slightly, because although they're not Decepticons, the Terracons in Rise of the Beasts are kind of complicated. I think Scourge was amazingly done, but I cannot say the same for Nightbird and what's his name? Freaking that guy, Battletrap, because guess what? He has no lines in this movie. Well, no, he might actually have lines, I just don't know that. All I know is that his name is not once said in the entire movie. Regardless, all three of the Terracons died and really served no actual purpose other than to end the movie. When you compare these deaths to all the ones in Bumblebee, those served a purpose. There was a reason behind Bumblebee needing to remove them. Whereas in Rise of the Beast, Nightbird is quite literally just deleted. This is a topic I could go on about for much longer, but I think I've said my piece. I understand that ultimately these movies are meant to sell toys, but that doesn't mean you should reduce the Decepticons to mindless cannon fodder. I hope going forward, they really consider giving Megatron, Starscream, Soundwave, Shockwave, and whoever else they plan to utilize in upcoming films actual personalities and voices. I think I speak for a lot of fans when I say that it'd be nice to see villains do a little more than just growl and then die, because part of what makes Transformers so interesting to fans is not just the good guys, it's also the bad guys. Because let's face it, purple is so much cooler than red. No, some Decepticons have really cool color schemes is what I'm trying to say. That's something which the Bayverse films also failed at miserably, is the color schemes. I mean, silver, 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 gray, black, silver, silver. You get the point. This was a video I've been wanting to do for a while, but I've rewritten it twice, and then I got sick. So hopefully this goes well, and I definitely plan to make more videos in the near future. I should have at least I have one per week for the rest of December. I'm hoping to get them done. But something I want to do next is actually cover all the Transformers movies one by one. That'll be starting probably in late January, and we'll do those like in a monthly order, sort of like a retrospective series, but not super in-depth, so they're not going to be like incredibly long or anything. It's more like a look back on them and discuss my personal feelings on them and how I think certain things probably should have been handled if they were a problem or something like that. Whatever, I'm rambling. With all that said, I want to know how you feel about the Decepticons in these movies. Maybe there's something I didn't consider that you can drop in the comments down below. So, with all that said, be sure to leave a like and maybe even subscribe if you want to see more Transformers content. And with all that said, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.